People don't lose, initiatives lose. So we want to be part of a winning initiative, not just a pipe dream that's wasting time and energy. So red isn't necessarily failure. Red is showing you what's not working. And isn't that what we want to know? We want to know what's not working, why it's not working.
Welcome to KPI Fireside. Our mission is simple: to improve companies and to improve careers through continuous improvement. In every episode, we explore the spark, the moment, the mindset, or the method that ignites real change. Whether you're just starting out or leveling up, you'll find the insights and inspiration to fuel your next improvement. Welcome back to KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. I am your host, Keith Norris. Our guest today is Francine Bejarano. She is a program and product delivery leader who spent her career helping large organizations bring clarity, structure, and momentum to complex technology work. She's led major initiatives at T-Mobile, IBM, Verizon, and today she drives delivery and transformation efforts to one of the world's largest leading global banks. She's known for connecting teams, simplifying the complicated, and keeping delivery grounded in real business outcomes. Francine is passionate about data, continuous improvement, and creating environments where teams actually enjoy working together. Outside of work, she serves her community as precinct chairman, helping people navigate voting and staying engaged locally. At her core, she loves solving problems, elevating people, and turning good ideas into real results. And that's the energy that she brings here today. Francine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me.
Well, one of the things that we like to start with on the podcast here is a little segment we call the Spark. And what I find a lot of folks engaged in this continuous improvement discipline had some sort of like moment where they got drawn into this. I'm curious for you, what was that moment?
I guess, seeing groups and teams do things over and over and still get it wrong. I was involved once and I was just a fly on the wall in a big executive meeting, listening in, and the customer was there with one of our VPs. And our VP was touting how many story points and how many hours of work we've done and we accomplished last year for the customer. And he was really proud and was so taken and just impressed with all the work that we've done. And then the customer, the leader of the other VP, said, "Yeah, but I still didn't get what I wanted." And my heart sank because I was the leader of one of those teams that thought we were driving to expectations and just crushing it. And to sit there and see that my customer wasn't really that impressed. So that was my spark to really understand it's not the number of hours and story point output. It's really about outcomes and not making trade-offs that your customer doesn't know about to gain more story points and to gain more traction in what you thought was a win. And you're going to the finish line, but you just turn out you're in the wrong race. That's how I felt. So that sparked a real fire in me. I was highly perturbed. I think I was more offended or hurt than probably my leader because, I have led these teams to work hard, to change their schedules, to work weekends. I had done it too. I would take my laptop on vacation and we were dedicated. We loved our job. We wanted to matter. And we did. We were just misfocused.
I love that that's your example. Folks that know me, particularly inside of our company, know that I have a bit of an aversion to story points as a metric.
I'm so glad because
I have been frustrated by conversations about number of story points. So for anybody that might not be familiar with what exactly story points is a way that in software developments and part of Agile, it's a pretty typical way of estimating the amount of work that is done. And I find it to be tremendously useful on the front end of work when you're saying, hey, it's like a relative sizing scale, right, Francine? Like, hey,
Right.
is this 13 points or is this one story point? It's
Right.
like
It's
relative sizing.
Yeah,
But
it's
what
supposed
it
to be like
doesn't do is,
level of complexity.
yeah, level of complexity. I mean, it's a useful tool in estimating and planning. It's not so useful in looking at the business value that was delivered. And
Excellent
that
point.
I
That
love that
is
that's
the point.
yeah, I love that that's the insight because again, I'm kind of pitching like what you just said, like you're there, you're doing this work, you've been given probably this number of story points by somebody and you're focused on like winning at the game you've been presented. And then it's like you move up to a different level and you realize that I think this happens inside organizations between levels. Like, if you think about tiers in work cells, like inside this work cell, story points is the game. But when you go up to that executive level, I'm curious in that situation, how did you shift the metric that you were, optimizing around from story points to something else?
Well, fortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, that was an end-year review. So I had some time to think about how to retool for next year. And that's when I got together with one of my mentors, who actually, he is the one who led me to you. He was my bridge to meeting you, Mr. Ray. And, we started to game plan. He was looking at how to do things better. I was his right hand. And so we started to commiserate and started to understand that execution isn't just about the amount of output, it's about really capturing the vision at the beginning and then creating those success metrics for the in-game result. So that is really the winning tell. It's done up front. It's like football, right? Winning is done up front. You win up front. You win or lose up front. Sometimes having those nuanced conversations when you're getting the new projects at the beginning of the year to really drive home in a polite and very soft-skilled, nuanced way. How are we going to measure this? I love your grand plan. Great idea. Love it. How are we going to measure that? What does success look like? And then they have to really think. And it's amazing how little, that granularity is. It looks like granularity. It feels granular. Like, wow, why are you asking me that? We just want to make sure that we have more sales at the end of the year. We want to be more productive. We want to cut costs by 10%. Okay, great. What does that look like though? What am I going to measure that by? Where are you at now? Many don't even know where they're at now. You can say, I want to cut something by 20%. Great. What's your baseline? Where are you at now?
That's one of my favorite goals
Well,
to see people is when they use percentage-based goals and you don't know where you're at currently.
And that's okay. That's what I'm here for, right? To help them understand this is how we're going to succeed for you. And this is what I'm going to come back and show you. And this is the plan I'm going to devise and schedule out and want resourced so that I can get you there. And I want you to win. I want to win. The team wants to win. And, we all want to win together. So we all know that people don't lose, initiatives lose. So we want to be part of a winning initiative, not just a pipe dream that's
Yeah.
wasting time and energy.
Francine, I heard you say recently that hope is not a strategy, and I really like that phrase. In this example, I think I want to build a little bit of context. So you had a senior executive that owns some initiative, and you were acting as a project manager, a manager in some way. And
Absolutely.
so I'm picking up on you had the difficult job of connecting this vision, this idea, this goal, you might say, to the tactical implementations. Build a little context for us. Tell us a little bit about what that goal was and some of the questions that you had to extract from that executive so you could get a clear definition of winning.
Okay. Well, so at that point, when I was involved in those high-level meetings, I had the pleasure of being not only a project manager for a few network-related projects, but also a program manager. I was leading a team of contractors along with some full-time staff and, overseeing and managing a whole a small group, but a group of people. So I had my eye on many topics. But I think what interested me most was how we were going to realign with the prioritization of what that customer wanted, because that was what he didn't get. So automatically I start digging in. What is it that we did that was out of alignment with what he wanted? And how did we not know that? It's it's one of those questions. How did you let it get so far gone? How did you let it get so bad when you didn't even know it was bad? It's just the classic miscommunication that you know it's just being lost in busyness. My director at the time was the head of all of IT for the org, all of internal um, network operations. Not only did we have vendors that we were supporting and collaborating with and making, um, you know, buy, borrow, build decisions, but also maintaining that day to day, but also, of course, building the new, right? Looking forward. So the way I did it was I started to get a lot more involved with the customer directly. Started to have more direct conversations. There's an old saying, you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. So I started to get in the room. I started to listen in on the calls, and I started to interpret what the customer meant, what really drove value to them. When they kept saying, this is my ABC, I didn't really just listen to, okay, well, we're maintenance mode here. Okay, that's great, but we're going to throw in an A1 or a B2 or a C3. We've got to start to meet what the customer is expecting and execute on that. Take time back away from maintenance. And if that means, and that did mean evaluating some of our tools and really starting to understand what we need to buy, what we need to build, maybe what we need to borrow, and what needs to retire. We started to make really applicational rationalization discussions a part of our day-to-day. What's going to go away because it just doesn't meet the need anymore? It's not relevant anymore. It's costing too much. We have too much tech debt with it. So we just needed to retool. But I think the real change factor there that I saw was I needed to be in the room. And it didn't mean I needed to say anything. I can say something after. But when my boss was in that room, and he was so gracious to allow me that audience. So many times we don't know because we don't get access.
Yeah.
We don't hear the conversation. We're told, sit over there. And I've found that, being a female minority in IT in a STEM field, I had to work my way up, and to be given opportunity to listen in and then to build relationships with my key stakeholders. Key to success.
That's I think you've got an interesting and valuable perspective on that situation. I've got a couple of things that come to mind there. In particularly with this podcast and the listeners, we've got folks that are both in like traditional manufacturing, mining, building heavy equipment, manufacturing lines, and also IT. When you work in different industries, you see patterns, and some things that are really easy in some places are really hard in others. There's a popular concept in the Lean Six Sigma discipline of go to the Gemba, go and observe.
Mm-hmm.
It's very commonly understood that if you're a leader or responsible for helping a team of people in a physical manufacturing sense do process improvement, you've got to go to the Gemba and go and see. I know in software, in a digital world, that's a little bit harder because the people that are using your product are like somewhere else. But it sounds like you were able to figure out some ways to use the word like get in the room. What were those conversations? How did you structure that? Was that something that you did on a regular cadence? What insights from that might somebody be able to take and say, maybe this is an idea I could use to get a better sense of the voice of the customer?
Well, that's exactly what we called it, and we would have a weekly or a monthly checkpoint on that. It was the voice of the customer. You'll see, we popularized that around our ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
We had everyone thinking customer-centric thoughts all of a sudden. There was a meeting that was standing but I don't think it was taken with the seriousness that it needed and the sense of gravity that it needed until that big failure. So after that, that meeting became very popular. The audience broadened. Not only was that leader on there that was touting out our work, his presence was more felt, and that, kudos to him for doing that. But also, it didn't stop there. They let the mid-level management team, project managers join that meeting and listen in. And many times we started presenting. I'd have product managers on there, some of the staff. They started presenting and looking at the metrics, talking about where we were at and how things were coming to plan. Before then, it was just an isolated group, right? It was probably director and above, and things like that are great. They definitely need those times when it's just them, but I think sometimes too it was very friendly, But when it comes down to really result driven success, and we're talking about outcomes now. Now we're talking about, did we hit our mark? What was our mark? Did we have a mark? That's when you really need those people in that can, your field generals, so to speak, of which I was one, those ground leaders that know the team, that see the hidden bottlenecks, that see misalignment, that know maybe when resources were being reallocated to other projects that weren't as valuable or weren't as prioritized as others because of someone's want or need or, fire drill. Those things happen. They do. But, is it a huge sucking sound that we hear, going away from the main priority? Is it the smell of napalm in the morning, once again, or perhaps I need to have a discussion that, hey, half my team has been pulled off of this by VP such and such. That's going to impact, the director or these other directors and VPs, and they need to either agree to that or we need to manage this because this just happened.
So you mentioned that you've done work as a project manager and as a program manager. For anybody that might not understand the difference between those two things or like how the scope of work changes, could you describe just a little bit the difference between project manager versus program manager?
Sure. Those chameleons that have eyes that can focus, but one can go off? That was me. I have to manage the day-to-day in specific projects and own that, mitigate problems, manage risk, meet with my team, do the daily stand-ups, making sure that, not story points, but day-to-day wins are happening. What did you work? What do you plan to work on today? What did you do? What's for tomorrow? Any bottlenecks? Any risks? Any problems? How can I help you? Those things. You never have the purity of just having one type of world to live in. Alongside that, I was managing a team of project managers that had come in, or that I assumed responsibility for, and made them responsible for updating tools. We had the pleasure of bringing in new tools. One of them was KPI Fire, where we were able to, share progress, look at everything from a dashboard perspective. So we had our own meetings and planning sessions and just, risk analysis times to, regroup and make sure that we were staying in alignment with what we needed to do. So I had the privilege of doing both. And for a while there, for the first year, I did it not gratis, but it was an opportunity that I took to learn. And then I was promoted into the role, so to speak.
So it sounds like you're saying that you had an opportunity to do the work before you were officially like hired into that role.
That's right. No free rides.
I think that's an interesting comment. And I think that there's a lesson in there for a lot of people. Like, I think the idea that if there's something that you're interested in, that you want to grow your career, you're going to be doing something that you've never done before. And just having that opportunity to do that thing you've never done before, has some value to you perhaps. But I think that that's a good demonstration of taking initiative to like raise your hand for something and say, hey, I'm willing to try this thing. I haven't done it before. I don't have any necessarily direct credibility, but you're willing to take it on. And in your case, it sounds like you were recognized with an actual promotion and advancement to that role.
I was, and sometimes, I'm a firm believer in you. Your talent will find you. You know, I don't like telling children or people, oh, you can do anything. Not really. What are you good at? What are you good at? What lights your fire? What are you interested in? What is work to you? What do you do that you wouldn't even be paid for doing? You love it so much. That's why when people say love what you do, they really mean that. They mean love it, because whether you're paid or not, you're probably going to gravitate there anyway. So your talent will find you, and it'll make a way for you. So I'm a firm believer in that. And I, even to this day, when I've promoted people, I see that they're already doing the job. The promotion is like an after effect. They're already there. So it's more of an acknowledgement as opposed to throwing you into something that with a title and then making sure that you're not successful at it. I like setting people up for success, and of course, and I like to inspire, and that's what I long for too: inspiration and being set up for success. And of course, you have to get married yourself, so to speak. You have to say I do, and you have to work at that. But being walked down the aisle, I think that's okay. I think everyone needs a walk down the aisle to say, hey, is this where you really want to be? Let's start walking. Let's see. Let's really test this. And you have an opportunity to take an opportunity, to be given an opportunity. I think that's worth its weight in gold.
What are some of the things that you feel like in this, where you're at in your career, project manager, program manager, whatever comes next? What are some things that you feel like this is where your talent has found you? What is it about your, the kind of person that you are that you think this is like a really good place for you to be in your career?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just talking with a group of interns, and I love to be around young people. I love to see the fire in their eyes, and I love to spark something, to see them catch it. And we were talking, of course, I start asking those probing questions. Are you here? Are you happy? Is this what you want to do? Where do you find value? Is this your passion? And they're not used to being asked that. Strangely enough, I listen a lot, and then I see them holding back, and I want them to start out early and take risks. So inspiring them, motivating them. As a matter of fact, they said, you need to be a motivational speaker. I said, everyone's a motivational speaker. Everyone can do a TED Talk. But the point isn't me talking. The point is them being introspective, the self-examined life. I'm kind of a social scientist by nature. I love the philosophical, but I also love the practical. And I've learned that that's not just a right brain, left brain, algorithm versus art. It's hemispherical. They work together. So it's not just one part of a person that loves the analytical and the other part loves the artistic. It's a blend of both. And that's in every person. So to limit yourself with, oh, well, I'm just good with numbers. That's great. It takes art. It takes both of both sides of your brain to be great at that.
You described yourself as you say social scientist? Was that the phrase? One thing that I think is interesting, I want to point out, is like the curiosity. Like there's a genuine curiosity about you that obviously, you're talking about the questions that you've asked, but then you mentioned the balance. It's kind of like, you think about the balance, like the curiosity, you can be really curious and just dig into all sorts of stuff. But if you don't have what you called like the practical sense, okay, we can be curious, but we need to turn this into some results. A little
Absolutely.
bit ago, you hinted at your ability to take the vision from the executive and to be curious about that. That's great. But then also tie that back to like, okay, now what is that going to mean to execute? So I'm picking up on like an interest in what I might call like impact or results. Like it's not just about the curiosity and the exploration of the philosophy, but it's like you also want to like get stuff done.
I guess that's the duality in me. I love the technical field and the art of the possibility of achieving results. And I love the art of that, how to do that more efficiently, more effectively. AI is so interesting to me to do that, but it's so key to keep the human in the loop because what's it all for? It's all for people. And I'm reading a book right now called The Mattering Instinct, and it's fascinating because, it talks about the human drive to matter to others and to serve one another. And I think that, the pragmatism of AI enables us to, instead of hunting for information for so long or spell checking or trying to bring things together, we can do that more quickly and more efficiently. For why? To spend more time with the customer, to meet more needs, to serve, and to better humanity, to better people, to find complex answers to complex problems because we want to serve people.
I love it. That's a great answer. I want to come back to the conversation that you had with your team after that executive meeting where you realized that story points wasn't the game that you were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how you went back to your team and had to explain them that the metric that you were tracking last year is not the game has changed? Do you remember anything about that conversation? Is there anything?
Oh yeah, we probably had several. We probably all needed to take a minute, but I do remember, there was a little heat in that conversation. Understanding, what we were doing and what mattered most, and we responded. I think it was then time to recalibrate, and it was a major realignment. We had to retool, and that's when we knew we didn't have the right tools in place. We were misaligned, and we had no strategy. We had to come at this problem from a completely different perspective, because with statements like that and meetings like that, sometimes you don't get to come back twice. Let's put it like that. You might be talking to your VP about a problem one day, but you might not. If you can't solve that, eventually you won't be talking to that VP anymore.
Yeah.
Someone else will be. And again, access. It's a gift. It's something to be cherished. Just the mere presence of being customer facing or being able to engage with your customer and listen to their thoughts and help them to define those metrics and to help, I guess, put layers on their vision, to start to color in the vision. I felt like, it's Bob Ross, and that we're starting to fill in some things here. I love Bob Ross. And,
I love Bob Ross.
These are the things that calm me down at night, right? And we started to understand we have to engage more thinking and more investment up front as opposed to story point generation on the back end.
Are you struggling to ignite real change in your continuous improvement program? Firestarter is your field guide. Real stories, proven strategies, no fluff. Get it now on Amazon. You use the phrase a watermelon metric, green on the outside, red on the inside. One thing that I always find interesting with people is the definition of like red, yellow, green, red, amber, green.
We love that.
We call them RAG metrics, red, amber, green. Let's say, today is my first day on the job and I'm a project manager working from you. And I say to you, Francine, like, under what search situation would you want to see like something other than green on this project? Help me determine the difference between red, yellow, and green on my status report. How would you instruct me?
Gosh, I would just go in and let's turn everything red. Let's make it real. Because you're new and you're just starting. So let's assume it's all a fire. When you get in there and you start to understand where things really are and how close you are to delivering or not, that's when you can make the move. But I'd rather reality, because we need to report what's real. It can't be all sunshine and lollipops. Nothing is. So red isn't necessarily failure. Red is showing you what's not working. And isn't that what we want to know? We want to know what's not working, why it's not working. Here's a big thing too, where a lot of people they'll probably balk at this, but I find discussing the why we're doing something even more valuable than what we're doing, because everyone has buy-in when they discover they're part of that why.
I think that's brilliant. The KPI Fire has this feature called the idea funnel, and people will
Love
put
it.
ideas in for things. And the concept behind the idea funnel is that an idea starts, and it starts with a problem statement. Like, what is the problem that this idea solves? Because oftentimes when you see something that's an idea, hey boss, I think we should do X. If you don't explain the why behind it, it's really hard to get buy-in. And if there's a lesson for anybody listening, like if you have an idea, if there's something that you really think should get done and you want to be the one to drive it, and other people are not seeing it as clearly as you are, figuring out the why behind it is usually a pretty good way to get leverage on that. So I think that was a very insightful statement.
I have to tell you, that is my favorite. Well, I think that is my second favorite, but I think that's the first. My favorite aspect of KPI Fire is that idea funnel, because I would lead meetings and have that screen up, and that's really where decisions started being made as to if we were going to do this project or not. And
Yeah.
I had a really hard time getting everyone to come to the meeting, everyone who needed to be there to be there. And once I convinced our lead VP to attend that meeting, because she wanted to see everything that we were spending time on, all of a sudden that meeting blew up. I mean, I had about 80 people on that call. I started to say, oh gosh, how much money is this call cost? But it was so valuable because I became very popular, and we started making decisions right then and there. Is this going to go? That's not important. Deprioritized. Okay, how is this going? It turned into a departmental staff process meeting, like it turned into an accountability call. It was amazing. And I wouldn't have been able to do that because we examined tools across the ecosystem, and there was nothing else out there that provided that kind of visibility and real-time shareability and communication like KPI Fire's idea funnel. So great idea.
That's probably one of the things I realize is the symbolic importance and communication when you're asking a group of people, like, is this in the idea funnel, like something we're thinking about maybe doing in the future? We're spending a little bit of time flushing it out, or is this something that we are like committed to moving forward? And for so many companies, there's a lot of ambiguity there. All it takes is for an executive to, go spend a little time on a visit to a city, a plant, a team, and somebody says, what we should do, hey, how's it going? What would be great is if we did X. And the boss says, well, that sounds like a great idea. Next thing you know, the boss leaves and everybody's like shifting resources to this thing that somebody said, like, that sounds like a great idea.
Right.
Flippantly off the cuff. And so I think having a little formality to, like, are we doing this or are we not doing this? Is,
right. That whole, here we are with success metrics. How are we going to measure this? People love to just throw an idea out there, but not really tell what success means like. What does it look like? What is it? Again, is it 20% less of something that we're doing now? Is it cutting costs by 20%? Well, where are our costs now? Uh-oh. Don't know. Like, really? Okay. So that starts a whole new chain of ideas, right? I have to get someone on that. So, but you mentioned earlier, what was our conversation like after we had that realization that we were off the beaten path and we weren't delivering from that high level meeting that happened? What we did with the tool was we were able to document and throw everything that we were working on as an organization, our department, we put it in that idea funnel. And we were able to start to track where it was. Even though we didn't have other things built out with it, at least now we had a list and a focused way to account for this is our portfolio, so to speak. And this is where we're putting these are our our eggs in the basket. Is this what you want? Is this what the customer said he wanted? And we realized, no, his things aren't in there. Like, gee, isn't that funny? No wonder he's upset.
I
No
think that's
wonder our
such a good
customer's upset.
lesson there. Like I'm kind of been picturing myself in this situation. Like as a leader, I've asked for a lot of things, and sometimes you ask for too many things and you forget the priority and the sequence that they're in. But if an assertive person around you can say, "Hey, here's a list of all the things that you've asked for. Are all of these things still important?" Like that's a useful skill for an executive is to sometimes face their list of requests to make sure they're owning up to all of the assignments that they might have made.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Let's say there's a senior executive out there who maybe is in that situation. Maybe they've got a lot of vision, they've got a lot of ideas, and they've said a lot of things to a lot of people, but maybe they don't have somebody like you that can help translate that strategy into execution. What sort of conversation would you like to have as, let's say, a therapist or a consultant to say, here's what you should be looking for in somebody in your organization that can help you translate that vision into execution?
Think, I think the skills that you look for in a person that could provide that, could bridge the gap there for you is someone who is very results oriented, who's a great listener, and who can drive accountability, but also, listen with empathy and that makes people feel important. We never want to devalue anyone. So you want a good people person, but you want a good technical person too. And that it's, again, hemispheric, but it's also a rare breed because you do have people that are, they're more inclined not to be dealing with people all day. I am more inclined to deal with people. So people in process. So I think you want to find that perfect hybrid. They're out there and they might need a little dusting off and they might be in a role that is unconventional right now. But again, you as a leader, you have vision and you can see things. So trust that and give them a test. Start to put them in things to where they would need to use those skill sets and, ask them what their vision is for themselves. I think you'll be very surprised and really excited. I know many leaders, they are looking for people that they can help. They want to help people. They really do. They also want to have results. They want to help the company. So that's important. That's why we're all employed. So that's the main thing. But while you're doing that, no one wants to succeed alone,
Yeah.
We all want to, I think it's something within leaders that, true leaders, good leaders, that want to bring others with them.
Such good insights. It definitely resonates with me as true. So I appreciate those comments. So Francine, I want to move into a section here. We call this the rapid fire. This is just some kind of quick questions, like, you can finish the sentence, short answer type thing. The most important job of a leader is to blank.
Listen.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite go-to problem-solving tool or visual device that you like to throw at a problem? You look at they say like when you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
The nail. Mm-hmm.
What's your hammer?
A yellow legal pad and a pen. First thing.
That's a good one.
Very, very basic. And then, of course, I love KPI Fire.
How about this one? Do you have a favorite question?
What's the problem we're trying to solve?
Such a good one. Continuous improvement is
the key.
You already mentioned one book that you're currently reading. Is there a book that you recommend, maybe related to this discipline or just something that you're interested in?
Well, I'm in the middle of your book, Firestarter, so I love that. I also like How to Think Strategically by Greg Gythens, and I'm also reading right now. I'm always reading. Always look for readers too. I love Readers Are Leaders. Readers Are Readers. The Work of Leaders by a few people: Julie Straw, Mark Scullard. So The Work of Leaders.
Yeah, hold that up for us there. Okay, yeah. Great.
Work of Leaders and
good book recommendation.
How to Think Strategically. I do too, and I really find them valuable. So, yeah, good. Of course, I like this one right here. You've seen that one before.
An excellent one.
Oh yeah, Broaden Your View. So And then I think I mentioned The Mattering Instinct by Rebecca Newberger.
I know that people are questioning what AI adoption in the enterprise particularly is going to be like. What predictions do you have? Maybe things that you've seen where AI has been adopted or hasn't been adopted. What do you think is like the expected pace of AI adoption in large enterprises?
I think you know they're trying to be cautiously optimistic. We've seen some, we've heard a lot of gung ho talk, and then as it's implemented, I have personally seen a lot of hallucinations with it. That's the concept where the AI is
Making stuff up.
just making it up. It's a little wild. We're not really sure how it got there.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so incumbent upon us to be very careful with it, to not regard it as, whole fact. Again, it's artificial. So I find the name very enlightening when I say it. I think they'd rather say AI, but I know, it's artificial. And I think there's some protections that we need to put in place to deal with it. I think there needs to be structure around that. We can't have more regulations on, the nail tech that does my nails, as opposed to, AI companies, frontier labs that are responsible with so much. They have so much information now, and it's posing societal change. So we should be very careful with it. Again, I'm a fan. I think it can be used for good. Hopefully, that we can balance that. We can put in the right guardrails and the right protections to protect people and communities and children, artists, creators. I think someone said it's like the 4 C's, children, communities, creators, and something else. But we should be very careful with it. But we can't be a Luddite. We can't bury our heads in the sand and not see that this is what competition will bring. This is what new technology brings to the table. But that we always need to be the human in the loop and always have that fail safe.
Well, Francine, thank you so much for joining us here today. If anybody wants to get in touch with you or connect with you on LinkedIn, or is LinkedIn the best place?
It is, yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Francine Bejarano, and you can hit me up there.
I love catching up with you again and hearing your stories and what you're up to. It's been so much fun.
Keith Norris, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so wonderful. You're so kind. Thank you. And for our listeners, if you'd like to suggest a guest, ask a question, or give us any ideas for episodes or content, you can reach out to me, Keith Norris, on LinkedIn also. And this concludes this episode of KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. If you have enjoyed today's episode, be sure to add a comment, like, follow, subscribe on the socials, and share the podcast with friends or colleagues who are as passionate about continuous improvement as you are. You can find us wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, keep driving progress and sparking change. This episode is brought to you by KPI Fire, the all-in-one platform for continuous improvement. With KPI Fire, you can align strategy, drive execution, and engage your people. So whether you're leading a team or driving enterprise-wide change, KPI Fire helps you deliver real results. Learn more at www.kpifire.com.